Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're doing something really cool. We're decoding the exact science behind crafting successful children's moral stories. We're going to take this fascinating journey, moving right from the writer's desk, where these colorful little worlds are born, directly into the clinical developmental psychology of a child's mind. We really want to see how these stories actually land.
Think back to when you were a kid, right? We all grew up on fables, fairy tales, and, Saturday morning cartoons. But it's actually really fascinating to stop and ask, do these whimsical animated characters have a tangible impact on shaping our moral compass? Like, does a talking animal actually teach a child right from wrong?
So, here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at writing for children's animation. Second, the animal fable formula. Third, brains over brawn. Fourth, the danger of laziness. And finally, measuring children's moral values.
All right, let's jump straight into Section 1, Writing for Children's Animation.
Before a story can teach any kind of profound lesson, somebody actually has to write it. And animation writer Katie Segrove points out just how incredibly disciplined you have to be to build these fantastical worlds. You can't just casually write a 15-minute script. You've got to strictly adhere to very specific 7 or 11-minute episode lengths. You have to hyper-target narrow age brackets like 0 to 2 or 3 to 5. Plus, you need the sheer stamina to plan out a massive 26 to 52 episodes over a development cycle that can easily take 5 or more years.
It's a really specialized craft. As Segrove points out, you aren't just writing dialogue here. Literally every single grunt, exclamation, and huff has to be meticulously scripted out. If you don't explicitly write down that a character is panting while lifting a heavy box, the voice actor just won't record it, and the animation ends up feeling totally lifeless.
Moving right along to Section 2, the Animal Fable Formula.
So how exactly are characters chosen to deliver these carefully crafted scripts? Well, whether we're looking at ancient Indian oral traditions like the Panchatantra, or just modern TV scripts, animals act as the absolute perfect, unbiased avatars for complex human traits. Think about it. A lion is naturally a king, a fox is sly, a rabbit is fast. By using these colorful animal illustrations, writers create consistently relatable vessels for moral lessons that completely bypass human biases around things like race, class, or geography.
Which brings us to Section 3, Brains over Brawn.
Okay, so once you have your animal avatars, you absolutely need conflict. And the timeless cat and mouse fable perfectly illustrates one of our most universal narrative archetypes, the ultimate showdown between physical power and pure intelligence. You have the predator, the cat, relying on brute strength and cunning, but whose fatal flaw is almost always its own overconfidence. On the flip side, you have the mouse, physically inferior, sure, but armed with strategic teamwork, agility, and a quick wit that lets it survive as the ultimate underdog.
In a really classic telling of this fable, the mouse rallies all its friends as soon as they hear a new cat has arrived in the village. By completely outsmarting the overconfident feline, mocking her, and then seamlessly escaping into a tiny hole, the mouse actively teaches kids that intelligence and collaboration can overcome even the most daunting, physically superior challenges. Brute strength literally isn't everything.
And we actually see this evolving today. Take a modern Hindi YouTube script featuring Minnie the lazy cat and Chiku the smart mouse. Instead of just outsmarting each other endlessly, they end up facing a common enemy, a wild dog. By combining the cat's physical jumping ability with the mouse's cleverness to cause a distraction, they escape together. So the moral evolves to teach that true friendship and survival actually rely on trust and cooperation.
Let's look at Section 4, the danger of laziness.
What happens when a character completely refuses to put in that hard work? Let's track how this behavior escalates in the famous fable of the lazy donkey. Day 1, it's just an accident. The donkey slips, the salt in its sacks dissolves in the river, and boom, the load lightens. Day 2, the donkey intentionally slips to cheat the system. But by day 3, the master catches on and loads him up with cotton. When the donkey slips again, that cotton absorbs the water and becomes unbelievably heavy. It shows kids that while laziness might offer a temporary shortcut, honesty and sincerity are literally the only ways to avoid ruin.
And look at how this exact same framework is used right now. We see identical moral mechanics in a modern YouTube kids script about Samajdar Swaru, a remarkably lazy pig. He flat out refuses to help his friends build a real barn, throws together his own house of leaves in 2 minutes, and immediately loses it when the hungry wolf shows up. He has to run crying to the very friends he refused to help. So whether it's an ancient fable about a donkey or a new YouTube video about a pig, the core message that laziness is a curse and hard work is the right path remains remarkably constant.
Finally, Section 5, Measuring Children's Moral Values.
Okay, so we know how writers build these stories, and we know the archetypes they rely on. But do these stories actually work in the real world? Let's completely shift gears from the colorful world of storytime to the clinical, objective world of academic psychological research. Dr. Swati D. Patel utilized the standardized moral value scale to measure the moral compass of 120 primary school children in the Ahmedabad district. The study was perfectly split up, 60 students from municipal primary schools and 60 from granted primary schools. It was also split exactly down the middle, with 60 boys and 60 girls.
Interestingly, when testing traits like honesty and resistance to cheating or stealing, it didn't really matter where the kids went to school. The average scores between children at municipal schools, coming in at 20.87, and those at granted schools at 19.68, show that environmental school factors weren't really the primary driver of differing moral values in this particular sample.
However, the data does reveal a really noticeable shift when you look at gender. Within the specific study sample, the boys group displayed a higher average score of 21.35 compared to the girls' score of 19.20. It's a fascinating data point showing that moral development just isn't perfectly uniform across all demographics, and psychologists are constantly working to measure and understand exactly how these values take root in developing minds.
So as we wrap up this explainer, we really have to look at the big picture. We've seen how the highly intentional, rigorous craftsmanship of writers intersects with the very real, measurable psychology of child development. These really aren't just silly cartoons, they're highly structured delivery systems for morality. Which leaves us with a pretty vital question to ponder. If a simple animal fable has the power to shape a child's core values, what subtle lessons is the next generation truly absorbing from the screens they stare at every single day? Definitely something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer today.